5 spine-chilling true tales of terrifying encounters while walking alone at night, revealed. Sarah tightened her grip on her coat as she stepped onto the cracked pavement of Maplewood. Every night, she sought solace in the quiet, but tonight felt different. Shadows edged closer, watching her with unseen eyes. Each step reverberated with the echo of old stories, the tales of lost souls and ghostly whispers that lingered long after the sun dipped low. The whispers themselves intensified, rising from darkened yards where the houses felt alive with secrets. "What are you doing here?" they seemed to ask. She pressed on, determined not to let fear keep her from her nightly ritual. But as the chill in the air thickened, the unsettling sense of dread wrapped around her like a heavy fog. The flickering streetlights turned sinister, illuminating patches of pavement but leaving menacing shadows lurking just beyond their glow. Suspicion gnawed at her, and the solitary streets that once felt comforting now echoed unease. Then, as she drew closer to the old Maplewood High School, memories flooded back. This crumbling structure, abandoned for years, held secrets of its own, stories of a student who vanished without a trace. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end as her heart raced. An ominous figure crouched near the entrance, its outline barely discernible in the darkness. Goosebumps prickled down her arms, urging her to flee. Yet, curiosity rooted her to the spot. "Help us help her," the words coiled around her mind, binding her feet in place. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The wind hissed through the trees. What if the stories were true? She wondered. The street around her felt thinner, as if the walls of her reality were closing in. Then, the police officers from the diner flickered into her mind, their thin smiles and probing gazes. Were they protectors or something much darker? An instinct drooped her shoulders with dread. Collecting her breath, she approached the school's entrance, her heart pounding wildly. The whispers swelled again, a chorus of the missing beckoning her into the abyss. Sarah's instinct screamed for her to turn back, but the hidden truths tugged at her like a string unraveling. She was not alone. Something watched from inside, a darkness wrapped in shadows, and as she scanned the dimly lit area, she felt those unseen methods creeping ever closer. Suddenly, a flash of movement behind her sent a shock of ice through her veins. Sarah turned, breath hitching, the darkness now alive with malevolence. The presence that stalked her drew nearer, a secret predator lurking, waiting for the moment she let her guard down. In that breathless moment of realization, her world spiraled into chaos. How could she confront those she didn't trust? A cold sweat broke across her forehead. The allure of the school's secrets became a weight, a promise of terror she could not ignore. With shadows closing in, Sarah stood on the precipice of discovery. Would she face the truth hidden within those walls, or would the lurking threat claim her too? The final question lingered in the air: how deep do the shadows run? The ground beneath Sarah's feet felt like it pulsed with a life of its own. She took a step back, instinctively wanting to retreat from the darkness, yet something deep within her yearned to press on, an internal battle tugging at her spirit. The figure stirred, an unsettling motion that anchored her to the moment. A cold shiver racked her body, as though the air itself conspired against her. "Help us, help her," echoed through her thoughts again, louder this time. The words felt almost tangible, a ghostly thread pulling her toward the school. But the shadows danced menacingly, and the outline of the figure sharpened a hooded silhouette that appeared all too frighteningly human. Panic clawed at her throat as she took a steadying breath, but it only served to intensify the metallic taste of fear in her mouth. "Who is it?" she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. They hung in the air, a prayer meant for the darkness. As if in response, the figure straightened, revealing a gaunt face barely visible in the meager light. Hollow cheeks and sunken eyes pierced the shadows, and a feeling of wrongness twisted in Sarah's gut. She could hear it now, the faint sound of breathing, uneven and raspy, like that of a predator sizing up its prey. The horror of the moment wrestled with her intent, leaving her paralyzed just outside the school's gates. "Go away!" she shouted, hoping for the force of her voice to pierce the veil, to banish whatever horror loomed before her. But the figure only tilted its head, a sinister mockery of curiosity or perhaps acknowledgement, as its lips curled into a phantom smile. An unearthly laugh echoed in the distance, rising from somewhere deep within the bowels of the school, filled with sorrow and madness. It reverberated against the crumbling walls, pulling at the frayed edges of her sanity. Adrenaline surged through her, a potent mix of fear and determination. Sarah had to know. She took a hesitant step forward, heart pounding as the whispers escalated into a deafening roar. The ground beneath shifted, as if it craved her attention. Each heartbeat screamed a warning, but as she stood there, every instinct urged her closer to that forsaken entrance. She felt the pull like the tide drawing her into something deeper. As she neared the door, suddenly, the world tilted. A distant crash echoed from inside the school, a sound too haunting to be anything but a cry for help. The figure moved in tandem, slinking deeper into the blackness, urging her forward. "Please," she gasped, adrenaline fueling her. The exclamation came too late. The ominous urge to flee wrested control of her body. She turned and bolted down the street, the echo of her footsteps accompanied by the sinister laughter still trailing behind. She could feel its breath on her neck, hot and close. Each glance over her shoulder revealed only shadows, but the chill that danced down her spine warned her of being watched. Until she could gain the sanctuary of home, her heart thundered, fear morphing into terror. As she rounded the corner, Sarah skidded to a stop. The police officers from the diner blocked her path, their smiles now twisted into something grotesque, eyes glinting with a darkness she couldn't understand. They stepped forward and she realized the sinister truth. What if they were not there to protect her, but to keep her from leaving? "Look who's back," one said, a smile splitting his face like a gaping wound. Unease crept into her, an icy sensation stifling her breath. The shadows of Maplewood were not finished with her. They hailed from every corner, darker and more unfathomable than she could have ever imagined. She backing away, into the darkness looming behind her, which seemed to swallow her whole. How far could she run before they caught up? What awaited her in the depths of the shadows? With nowhere to turn, Sarah realized she was ensnared, deeper than she'd ever dreamed. Sarah's chest heaved as she faced the grotesque smiles of the officers. Every instinct screamed that danger lurked within their seemingly benign exteriors. They stepped forward, closing the gap, the shadows swirling around her like tendrils reaching for her sanity. "Let us have a chat, shall we?" one officer said, his voice smooth yet dripping with malice. Behind her, the darkness pulsed, alive with whispers that pushed against her mind. "Help us help her," they clawed at her consciousness, desperate, pleading. Who were they? What had happened to the girl they kept mentioning? She darted to the side, her heart pounding in her ears. But the officers followed, their movement eerily synchronized, their eyes reflecting something unnatural. She dashed toward the alley adjacent to the diner, hope surging as she slipped into the narrow opening. The shadows inside seemed welcoming, wrapping around her like a shroud, hiding her from the menacing figures outside. "What do you want from me?" she hissed, breathless, the words echoing off the damp, brick walls. "Nothing more than your cooperation, Sarah. We know you can help," a voice floated from behind her, deep and controlled. It felt like ice threading through her veins. She turned. The alley's dim light flickered, casting grotesque silhouettes that tangled with her memories. She sensed something. Was it the figure from before? It lurked just beyond the edge of the shadows, a heartbeat away. "Help, her," echoed again, clearer this time. Sarah squinted into the darkness. The countless veiled faces loomed closer, just out of reach, weaving in and out of her perception. She couldn't tell if it was the darkness playing tricks or if something truly haunted this alley. Her pulse quickened, a frantic rhythm as she sidestepped. But the alley was a dead end. Panic crashed over her. She slid down the brick wall, her back against the cold surface, her breath coming in short, gasping bursts. She couldn't see a way forward. She glanced behind, only to find the officers waiting, their grins twisted wider as they closed in ever so slowly. "Sarah, we know you can save her. You just need to unlock the door," one of them said, the words dripping with an unsettling expectation. "Unlock what door?" she yelled, frustration boiling over into madness. "I don't know anything." The laughter returned, echoing amid the decay around her, an amalgamation of pain and despair. It reverberated in her skull, making her feel lightheaded. She pressed her palms to her ears, desperately trying to shut it out. Yet just as the sound reached a fever pitch, silence fell, everything moved like molasses, shadows danced without purpose. For a moment, she thought she saw her own reflection in the murky brick walls, but it eerily morphed into that of a girl, a gaunt figure with hollow eyes. This girl lifted her lips in a silent scream, the terror etched into her features indelibly. Sarah scrambled to her feet, breathing unevenly. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, the echo dying against the brick. "Tell me. Please." The sudden rustle of fabric broke the silence, and she turned, her heart leaping once again. A figure emerged from the shadows, staggering toward her. It was small, a child, stained with darkness and despair. "Help us," the child whimpered, voice trembling. "She needs you." The officers halted, the grotesque smirks fading from their faces. Sarah took a hesitant step back, uncertainty flooding her as she realized the dead end behind her wasn't just a wall. It felt like an unthinkable choice loomed at her feet between saving a lost child or confronting the malevolent figures before her. Would the shadows of Maplewood swallow her whole, or would she step into the unknown and fight back? In that fractured moment, Sarah knew she had to make a choice, but little did she realize, every choice would come with its own set of ghosts. The child moved closer, its fragile frame barely casting a shadow, yet the darkness around it was all-consuming. Sarah felt her skin prickling as a cold chill wrapped around her. The officer's eyes shifted from her to the child, their expressions sharpening. They weren't searching for answers, they wanted something much darker. Who are you?" Sarah stammered, unable to quell the tremor in her voice. "Please." The child's voice cracked, filled with a haunting urgency. "She's trapped. You have to help her. Unlock the door." "What door?" The words slipped through gritted teeth. Fragments of panic clawed at her. The officers edged closer, their grins narrow and predatory, their intentions more than unsettling. The shadows whispered. "Help her, free her." Enough. One of the officers snapped, and the child flinched, retreating slightly as if the word had wounded her. "You're not listening, Sarah. We're not asking. We're telling you. It's time to choose." The alley darkened further, the flickering light above dimming until only the faintest glow lingered. As she cast a desperate glance toward the mouth of the alley, the street beyond seemed a twisted nightmare, every corner a portal to something malicious. But the eyes remained on her. Eyes filled with insatiable hunger. "Making a choice means you need to know what you're dealing with," another officer crooned, stepping dangerously close. His voice sucked all warmth from the air. "We know you felt it, the power. The door can unlock it. It will set you free." "What are you talking about?" she gasped, her heart thudding violently against her ribs. "What power? What door?" Suddenly, the child drew closer, a shimmer of courage breaking through the despair etched into its features. I only remember whispers. They want to keep her locked away, but you can set her free. You have to find the door among the shadows. In another world, they were like you, Sarah. Just a choice away," the officer continued, relentless. "Join us, and you'll embrace what you were meant to be." With each back and forth, Sarah's heart raced faster. Who was this girl, and whom did she need to save? Her jaw clenched as she fought through a haze of confusion. Time was slipping away. The whispers grew louder, echoing thoughts and fears that made it hard to think straight. "Don't let them trap you here," the child urged, thrusting a pale hand toward the flickering light that cast a circle around them, almost like a beacon. "You can break free." The officers exchanged glances, their smiles frozen as if a crack ran through their facade. "Everything you need is in the dark, Sarah." Breath hitching, she stepped back, the walls of the alley pressing against her like a vice. The shadows felt thick and alive, pulsating with fragments of faces, eyes glaring and mouths whispering. The urgency in the child's voice pooled in her mind, spiraling into a vortex of uncertainty. Where was this door, and what would it mean to unlock it? Make your choice, Sarah. The officers lunged forward, their movements blurring, distorting reality. She only had moments to react. Despair crashed over her like a tidal wave, and she felt the wall of darkness closing in. The child's eyes beseeched her, pleading. Perhaps this was the moment to embrace the unknown, to defy the shadows for a chance at freedom. But was she ready to face whatever lay behind that door? As the officers lunged, Sarah's instincts kicked in. In the split second that followed, she turned toward the darkness, straining to hear the whispers more clearly, the murmurs dancing over her sanity. Would she surrender to the fear, or would she dive into the unknown and hope to set the girl and herself free? A choice loomed large, and as she took a trembling step forward, the sound of her pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out the laughter. The echoes of Maplewood were relentless, and Sarah felt the shadows' hunger for her. What awaited her in the depths of darkness? Sarah plunged into the darkness, her heart pounding like a war drum. The air thickened around her, wrapping her in a heavy blanket of dread. She couldn't quite see where she was going, but the whispers grew louder, merging into a chaotic chorus that filled her mind. Free her, find the door. Every step felt like a journey into an abyss, each passing moment flooding her with terror. The alley melted away behind her, replaced by an endless void, as if the very fabric of reality had unraveled. Sarah. The child's voice pierced through the murk, pulling her back. Hurry. Where was the door? She strained to remember, to pull some sense out of the madness surrounding her. The officers loomed in the background, shadows cast long and sharp against her resolve. She could feel their eyes slicing through the darkness, watching her, waiting. Come to us, Sarah, one of the officers taunted, his voice slithering through her mind like cold steel. We can give you everything you desire. Power. Freedom. No. She cried, terror mixing with anger. Leave me alone. It felt like shouting into a void, but somehow her voice rang true against the chaos. The child flickered beside her, a tiny beacon of hope amidst the consuming darkness. You can't trust them. They're lying. You need to believe in yourself. Sarah took a deep breath, grounding herself. What is this door? She asked, her voice trembling but steady. What do I need to do? Close your eyes, the child instructed. Listen to the shadows. They'll lead you. With hesitation, Sarah shut her eyes, the world around her fading away. She focused on the whispers, now distinct chords of pleading. It washed over her scattered notes of despair, fear, but laced with something that felt like purpose. Listen, she murmured, letting the darkness seep into her. It felt alive, pulsing, almost sentient. Find the memories, the child's whisper lingered, almost a ghost of hope. Memories? Panic surged again. She thought of her past, of moments both tough and tender. In a flash, the thought struck her grandmother's stories about a door hidden in the old cemetery, locked away behind weeds and tombstones. The door of lost souls. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet trembled violently, and the darkness surged forward, swirling around her like a tempest. She staggered, struggling to keep her balance. The officers' laughter echoed with an edge of menace, spiraling into a cacophony of mocking glee. Do you really think you can escape? An officer's voice roared, heavy with disdain as the shadows thickened, pressing in. Leave me! She screamed, and with that cry, she felt a surge of defiance. Opening her eyes, she was met with a scene of swirling shadows, tendrils reaching out, brushing against her skin. Fear coiled in her stomach as she fought against it. Do I really have power? She whispered to herself. What if I can set her free? A sudden clarity emerged, a surge of strength flowing through her veins. This ends now, she declared firmly, her voice echoing against the darkness. The child smiled, hope flickering in those pale eyes. Yes. Now, find the door. But the laughter intensified, blaring in her ears, swallowing her courage whole. The officers surged forward, bodies distorted and monstrous as they vanished into the swirling void. Then, just as she felt utterly lost, a warm glow broke through the shadows. It came from a wall ahead of her, shimmering and pulsating with life. The door? Her heart raced as she stepped toward it, but just then, the whispers turned into frantic screams. No! Don't go! It's a trap! The child screamed, "Sarah, wait!" In that instant, doubt gripped her. Was she walking toward salvation or doom? Her hand lingered before the door, caught in a tug-of-war between fear and a yearning for freedom. What awaited her on the other side? Would unlocking this door shatter the chains binding the child and perhaps herself, or would it lead her deeper into the clutches of the officers, into an abyss she could never escape? As she hesitated, the shadows quivered, and the distant laughter morphed into howls. One breath, then she turned the handle. What would await her in that moment of choice? The door creaked open, revealing an unfathomable darkness beyond. Sarah's heart jumped. There was no going back now. She stepped through, drawn in by a force she didn't understand. The cold air hit her like ice water, sending shivers down her spine. Behind her, the door slammed shut, sealing off the howling laughter of the officers. The darkness around her was thick and suffocating, swirling like a living entity. The child appeared before her, illuminated by a soft glow. You made it. But now you must choose wisely, the child urged, eyes wide with urgency. Choose. Sarah echoed, glancing around. The chamber had no beginning or end, stretching into an infinite abyss of shadows. What do I choose? Between two paths, the child replied. One leads to freedom, to us breaking free. The other. The child shuddered, glancing behind Sarah as if something lurked not far behind. The other is a trap meant to ensnare our souls forever. Fear gnawed at Sarah's insides. How will I know which is which? She felt the darkness pulse around her, whispering her name, pulling her deeper. Listen to me. The child insisted, tone turning desperate. Believe in the memories. They will guide you. Memories, she said slowly, feeling the weight of each moment she had ever lived pressing against her. She closed her eyes again, sinking into the recollections that came flooding back. She thought of her grandmother, the stories, the wisdom, the warmth that had always ignited light in her darkest hours. Suddenly, a vast tunnel of light opened before her, bifurcating the darkness. On one side, she sensed a familiarity, the soft whispers of encouragement, hints of sunlight. The other side was filled with eerie that clawed at her ears, haunting murmurs of despair. Sarah. The child's voice broke through the chaos. Choose the light. Please. She took a step toward the left path, feeling the warmth radiating from that side. But as she did, sharp fingers of shadow reached out, coiling around her ankles like a vice, dragging her backward. No. Sarah screamed, fighting against the grip of the darkness. With every ounce of strength, she wrenched free, stumbling toward the glow. Yet the laughter returned, louder and more vicious, overwhelming her with dread. Do not listen. The child yelled. Trust yourself. With renewed determination, Sarah fixed her gaze on the warm light, envisioning her grandmother's reassuring smile. I am stronger than you. She yelled into the void. I choose my path. The shadows raged, but she pushed forward, breaking through their grasp, her heart now hammering with hope. Yet, as she reached the threshold of light, a chilling voice echoed behind her, splintering her courage. It's too late, Sarah. You're in too deep. Twisting around, she glimpsed the officers, now monstrous silhouettes, their eyes burning with cruelty. This is a dead end, you know. They sneered. There's no way out. In that moment, the fury of doubt crashed against her. Was this truly her salvation, or were the officers right? Her convictions trembled, and the glow ahead flickered ominously. The child was still there, gripping her hand with a fierce urgency. Don't let them in. Just breathe. And just like that, she felt a surge of light within her, something primal uncoiling. Breathing deeply, she focused. Would it be enough? The shadows howled, and the ground beneath her lurched. I am not afraid, she shouted, stepping into the light with the child beside her. But as the blinding glow enveloped them, the laughter began to fade into a chilling silence. What would that silence reveal? Light engulfed Sarah and the child, blinding her momentarily. She felt warmth wash over her, a soothing embrace in stark contrast to the darkness that had gripped her moments before. Yet, as she opened her eyes, reality hit like a cold slap. They were in another chamber, an eerie stillness wrapping around them like a cold blanket. Laughter was gone, but the aftertaste of fear lingered on her tongue. The child stood beside her, eyes darting nervously. This place, it's a test, they murmured. We're not safe yet. Safe from what? Sarah whispered, heart still racing as she scanned the surroundings. The walls were lined with mirrors, but not the kind that reflect your image. These mirrors seemed to pulse, their surfaces rippling as if alive. The reflections shifted, showing warped versions of Sarah, each one more sinister than the last. With every step, the whispers grew louder, tantalizing, promising, and mocking. Above it all, a voice like broken glass cut through. You think you've escaped? You have only just begun. Where is this? Sarah trembled, eyes darting from one mirror to the next. The reflections began to distort, showing her memories, flashbacks of old arguments, lost friendships, and moments of regret. She turned to the child, panic creeping in. This isn't a test. This is torture. You have to face them. The child urged, their voice shaky. It's all part of breaking free. Sarah stepped toward the nearest mirror. The face staring back at her wore a sneer, lips twitching with cruel delight. Remember when you abandoned your dreams? It taunted, eyes glinting with malice. You'll never find peace. You're weak, that's why you're here. No, she shouted, clenching her fists. I'm not weak. But as the words left her lips, the rest of the mirrors echoed the sentiment. They formed a chorus of shouts, converging into a deafening storm. Look at her. A failed artist. A coward. Deafening memories filled her head, clawing for dominance. The shadows within her surged, urging her to succumb to despair. Stop. Get out of my head. She screamed, but the voices only grew louder. The child grabbed her wrist, their grip tightening. You must confront them. Look at what is real. Not what they make you believe. Breathing heavily, Sarah faced the mirror again, this time forcing herself to see past the twisted grin. Memories flooded back, flickering in bright bursts. The joy of her grandmother's laughter, the exhilaration of painting the sunset, and the determination that had once burned inside her. No. I acknowledge these feelings, but they do not define me. She shouted, the foam of defiance rising within her. Light began to pulse from her core, pushing against the shadows that wrapped around the space. The mirrors trembled, and one by one, they shattered, releasing bright shards that bathed the chamber in dazzling light. Yet, even as shards exploded around her, Sarah felt an unsettling chill creep in. Behind the noise and chaos, a figure began to emerge from the shadows, cloaked in darkness, face hidden. It was watching her, waiting, revealing the sinister truth. You think you're free, don't you? The shadows, now trembling, coiled toward the figure. You are mine. You can never escape. A flood of panic surged through her as she turned to the child, who stood paralyzed with fear. What now? The figure stepped closer, its voice a wicked hiss. Now, you must choose again, and with that, the chamber quaked, the ground shifting beneath her feet. The light dimmed threateningly as Sarah felt her heart race, uncertainty gnawing at her core. Would she find the strength to endure another test, or would the darkness swallow her whole? The ground's tremor was like a heartbeat, steady yet ominous. Dark laughter echoed, rattling the mirrors that remained intact. Trembling, Sarah clutched the child's hand tighter. Their tiny fingers were cold, fear radiating off them like a beacon. Choose. The figure commanded, voice slicing through the air like a knife. It stepped closer, revealing a hint of its face beneath the shadow's eyes hollow, a grin stretched unnaturally wide. To move forward, you must decide. Your past or your pain? Sarah's throat tightened. The decision loomed over her like an executioner's blade. But this wasn't about her anymore. The child's innocent eyes glimmered with panic, mirroring her own dread. What does it mean? She gasped. It means you have the power to confront what haunts you or endure even more agony, the figure hissed, leaning in, breath cold as ice. But beware, every choice has consequences. Every choice, she echoed, the phrase buzzing in her mind. Visions of her past danced in the mirrors, swirling in a vortex of regret and shame. She could see her grandmother's ashes, scattered like forgotten dreams, her art abandoned in dust-covered corners. Heart racing, she felt herself spiraling into darkness, drowning in memories that threatened to suffocate her. Don't let them take you. The child screamed, pulling at her, their tiny frame quaking. You have to fight. Sarah's heart thundered. Fight? Fight what? My own memories? Yes. You have to face them. You are stronger than you believe. Barely able to think, she turned back to the figure, the sinister smile widening. It reveled in her turmoil, its glee unabashed. Choose wisely. Your regret? Or suffer the pain of your failures? The ground shook violently, mirrors vibrating with tension, their reflections warping in a cacophony of twisted shapes. Shadows slithered, eager to curl around Sarah, whispering sweet nothings of surrender. You can't do it, they crooned. Why fight when you can let it all go? No, no. Sarah shouted, clutching the child to her, trembling all over. Her heart pounded, a primal scream rising in her throat. I won't lose to you. A sudden, faint warmth pulsed within her, giving her a fleeting sense of purpose. The memories began to shift and flicker. Childhood laughter drowned out the whispers and taunts. I loved painting sunsets. She yelled, eyes fierce. I loved dreaming big. It doesn't matter how far I fell. I can rise again. Foolish. The figure shrieked, voice cracking. This is your reckoning. At that moment, light exploded from within her, radiating and shattering the remaining mirrors into a storm of shards. They rained down like stars, reflecting bits of her past, her unyielding spirit, but as the darkness writhed in fury, a dark hand shot forward, faster than instinct. It gripped her ankle, cold and clammy, dragging her down. No! She screamed, clawing at the ground, the child's terrified face fading from view. A piercing scream erupted, reverberating through the chamber, but it wasn't just hers. The child. She felt the world tilt, as if she were plunging into an abyss. Let go. I want to let you take them. Sarah cried, clenching her fists, desperation pouring through her. The figure's laughter was a low rumble, a haunting echo. You're too late, you can't escape this time. With every ounce of strength, she pulled against the malevolence gripping her, fighting against the pull of pain and sorrow. A single thought pierced through the chaos. What if the child was just the beginning? And in the thinning light, she felt the truth of her choice resound within her. Now, with shadows swirling around her and choices beckoning from the depths, what would she sacrifice to save what mattered most? What darkness lay ahead, waiting for her response? The grip around her ankle tightened, dragging Sarah deeper into the cold, suffocating darkness. Her breaths came in sharp, desperate gasps, and she fought against the unseen horror pulling her further away from the child. I want to let you take them. She screamed again, the wildness in her voice echoing off the walls. Suddenly, the ground beneath her felt wet and sticky, as if she were sinking into some malevolent substance. Fear clawed at her insides. Images flooded her mind, flashes of all the moments she'd ever felt out of control, all the times she had failed. The laughter of the figure echoed, mixing with her own thoughts, creating a symphony of panic that rattled her sanity. You think you can rise again? It taunted, its form swirling like smoke, constantly shifting. You're still tethered to your failures, Sarah. You are nothing without your pain. No. She shouted, her voice a thin thread in the chaos. But the shadows laughed back, mocking her resolve, whispering temptations of surrender and relief. Just then, a flicker of light exploded in the distance. It was weak, like a distant lantern in a storm. Sarah. The child's voice called out, frayed but determined. I believe in you. Don't give in. Hope surged through her like electric shock. She pictured the child's face, eyes shining with trust, and that picture became her anchor. I can't fail them. Strength pulsed through her veins, and she summoned everything within her. With a fierce scream, she pulled against the murky grip, pulled with the ferocity of a mother bear protecting her cub. Get away from me. The ground quaked beneath her as she yanked herself free from the clutches of despair. She felt a surge of light, warmth filling her heart, banishing some of the shadows that clung to her. The figure recoiled, its form flickering uncertainly. You break the rules. It bellowed, rage bubbling beneath its words, the laughter twisting into a screech of agony. In that moment of clarity, she felt a profound sense of control. Every regret, every painful memory, became a flickering candle she could confront rather than a burden that weighed her down. You are not my master, she declared, her voice rising in volume. The darkness shrieked as if Sarah's proclamation injured it. The figure writhed, shadows twisting into grotesque forms that contorted and melted away. You will regret this. It howled, fading into the crevices of the chamber. But the ground beneath her began to tremble violently once more. The mirrors had shattered, but now they reformed, piecing together new shapes with shards that glimmered like ice. They reflected fragments of her past, her grandmother's face, the art she abandoned, the dreams she buried. This time, though, they didn't appear as threats but as lessons, reminders of her strength. Fingers of shadow began to creep back, forming claws that clawed at her determination, seeking to drown out the light she had found. Face your truths, they taunted. No. I will face them on my terms. Sarah roared, forcing her way through the spectral haze. The child stood just within reach, eyes wide, full of unwavering belief. Each trembling step toward the child felt like a battle won, but an uncertain thought curled in the recesses of her mind. What if confronting the last memory was the true horror? As she drew closer, black tendrils swarmed around her, threatening to pull her back down into the darkness. The laughter of the figure returned, echoing off the cavern walls. This isn't over, Sarah. You've only just begun to unlock the truth. The air buzzed with an electric tension, shadows swirled with intentions unknown, and ahead, the child's small body shimmered with light. The crushing weight of darkness swelled as she felt the ground shift once again beneath her feet. What awaited her in that shimmering light? What dread would emerge from the heart of her past? As Sarah pressed forward toward the child, a desperate determination ignited within her. The oppressive weight of darkness still loomed, but that shimmer of hope outshone even her deepest fears. She could do this not just for herself, but for the child staring at her, eyes glinting with trust, stirring something dormant inside her. Just a little closer, she whispered, voice trembling but firm. The shadows lashed out, dark tendrils reaching hungrily, grasping for her ankles, but she fought them with sheer force of will. I will not be a prisoner of my shadows. With every step, memories flooded her consciousness, tender moments with her grandmother, those nights spent painting dreams on canvas, laughter shared above the familiar smell of baked cookies. They wrapped her in warmth, pushing back against the icy coils that dragged at her. Sarah! The child cried, voice breaking through the haze. You're so close. A surge of light radiated from Sarah's core, pushing against the shadow-cloaked world surrounding her. The warmth surged with each step she took, the light brightening, bouncing off fragments of shattered hope now glowing with new potential. That bright clarity, she saw at a doorway shimmering with energy, standing between her and the child, a portal to something liberating. That's it. She breathed, feeling an exhilarating rush. But the laughter of the figure echoed, sickeningly sweet, reverberating through the void. Nothing cannot be undone, Sarah. This is where you will fail. It taunted, shadows doubling in deepness, clutching madly at her resolve, yet, Sarah stood firm. With a deep breath, she summoned all the strength she could find. You may try to define me, but I am not afraid. I choose to embrace my past. With that declaration, she rushed towards the glowing door, arms outstretched. The shadows shrieked angrily. You will regret this decision. They howled, a cacophony of rage swirling around her. As she reached the doorway, she felt the warm energy envelop her, inviting and supportive. This was not an escape, it was a reckoning. She spun back toward the swirling shadows and the figure. This ends now. She yelled, and she stepped through. Reality shifted all around her, sending her tumbling forward. She landed softly on cool grass. The air smelled fresh and alive. Disoriented, Sarah blinked against the bright sunlight, the feels both surreal and grounding. She was in the old cemetery she had heard about from her grandmother, the very spot where her stories began with shadows and whispers. The child stood beside her, now radiant, a gentle smile replacing their earlier fear. You did it. We did it. Where are we? Sarah asked, realizing she was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Home, the child replied, pointing toward a set of crumbling stones with names weathered over time. This is where the lost can find peace. As Sarah looked around, she saw other figures emerging from behind headstones, lost souls, trapped like her but now stepping forward into the daylight. They moved gracefully, eyes shining with a mixture of relief and gratitude, surrounding her and the child in a halo of light. Help us help her, the voices changed. No longer filled with despair, but with joy and empowerment, the figure she had battled receded into the shadows, its existence lessened, diminished in the presence of acceptance and light. This isn't the last you'll hear from me, it hissed before dissipating into nothingness. The warmth embraced Sarah, calming her heart. She understood then her memories weren't chains. They were lessons. She could choose how to carry them, how to face them. Will you join us? The child asked, eyes bright with seriousness. Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of belonging swell within her. Yes. I'll help them find peace. The whispers became music, harmonizing with laughter as the souls united. Hand in hand, they walked toward the shimmering horizon, leaving the darkness behind. Sarah felt light. She felt free. As she glanced back one last time at the dark void, she realized it held no power over her anymore. She had chosen to step into the light, to embrace her past and heal. Together with the child and the lost souls, she ventured into the realm of new beginnings, every footstep breaking the silence of despair, calling back to a world reborn. You need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We depend on you to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this life-changing ending. Your support is everything.